Hi, welcome to Tales of Dread. What happens when stories and myths come true? When you go looking for a monster, they may find you instead. My uncle and I are on an expedition in Greece and on the island of Crete. We are looking for ancient artifacts. Now, if you know anything about Greek mythology, especially about the island of Crete, you know about the Minotaur. The Minotaur is a fantastic creature from Greek mythology that lived on the island of Crete. It had the body of a man but the head of a bull. The Greek island of Crete has a complex network of underground tunnels that could have been the site of the ancient labyrinth. The maze in Greek mythology that was home to the half-bull, half-mound guardian. We had been living in one of these caves on the island of Crete for the past week. I was with my team when the cave started to shake and a flash of light could be seen in the distance. The caves have a network of tunnels, and the stalagmites echo the loud roar of something very angry. The roars were way too loud. I had no idea what kind of animal they came from, so I knew they were strange. I told everyone to be quiet so that we could hear better. We all kept looking forward while standing still. We didn't move at all. We just crouched down and said nothing, other than the heavy breathing. From inside the cave, we could only hear a faint drip of water. My heart was beating very fast. It felt like my heart was going to burst through my chest. I was really afraid. After a few minutes that felt like hours, I'm sure it wasn't the only one. I got the courage to come out from hiding behind the rock on the corner. I waved for everyone to stay where they were. As I slowly moved toward the light I could see in front of me, I kept my hand on the gun on the side of my belt, just in case. As I kept walking very slowly and carefully, I started to see chains on the wall ahead. The way the light reflected off of them made it clear that they were some kind of torture tools. I can't even explain it, but it was clear that this room was a jail or a place where people were killed. There were long, thin stones that stuck out of the walls like spikes. Attached to these spikes were what looked like the fossilized heads of people. God knows how long ago these were made. I did nothing to them. I just kept moving forward. I started to see bones strewn around the edges of the floor. When I thought I saw the shadow of something up ahead, I stopped in my tracks. On the right side of the hall, I hid behind a stone wall. I heard something heavy breathing, and whatever it wasn't too far away from where I was. Do I have the courage to look around the corner? I don't want to give up my position because if I do, I'll also have to give up the teammates I've left behind. I took a deep breath, put my head over the edge, and looked into the hallway around the corner. I can't explain what I saw. It looked like the shadow of a very big man. He seemed to be beating on something. Was sometime a hammer blade? I really couldn't tell. I couldn't get a good look at it because I wasn't close enough. But what was crazy was that this big man's shadow was there. His brain? His head was huge, much bigger than the body it was on, and it had horns that looked like a ball from the space between the worlds of sleep and wakefulness. Here comes Morpheus the scholar, the most powerful time sorcerer. Morpheus watches over the entrances to both worlds, and he knows everything about his nose. Man's personal problems and pleasures, as well as the nightmares they rent out to the unconscious. He was made by the fearsome Mador when he saw him in a dream, and people want to learn from him. Woe to those who want to follow him, but are willing to pay a lot. He falls on many cults that have gathered to ask Morpheus about his wisdom or for riches that can't even be imagined. Our group of 4 sticks together at night in the woods, where it's dark and there are lots of trees. The pentagram was already drawn on the ground, and there were candles set up at each point. Someone threw a young woman into the middle. Her prayer rose up into the night sky. The knife went deep into her stomach, past her sternum. The organ that made her heart beat was taken out of the wound. In a horrible way, he threw her beating heart into the fire while it was still steaming. When the heart was completely taken over, a hooded figure in a cloak stood in front of the cult. The hood of his cloak couldn't cover his face. He had thin fingers with sharp claws on them. He was taller than the people in the cult. The leader walked up to him and bowed. "We, your loyal servants, have called you out of the cracks to ask for your wisdom." The person in the cloak put his long fingers around the head of the cult leader. From his fingers, an orange light flowed out and into the mind of the cult leader. The cult leader's eyes have the same orange ring around them, and the nerves under his skin started to pulse. He started foaming at the mouth and then fell to the ground and spasmed. The rest of the group was horrified when they saw their leader twist and turn on the ground until his body turned into a purple sludge. "The things I tell you were never meant for you. I have seen empires come to power and fall. Kings and queens once ruled, but now they are just wrinkles in time that have passed through my gate. This is all I have to say. There will come a time when the sun will stop shining and the moon and stars will stay red. Chaos will be the new normal, and you humans will kill yourselves. Are you going to go crazy, Mom? Her arrival is right around the corner. Even if you try to stop her with magic, she will still come. If she did, time itself would turn into a crumpled mess." I went hiking for 3 days in the south of Norway in the fall of 2017. I've always liked being outside, and I've always loved the mountains, camping, and all the other things that go with it. I'm going to tell you something crazy. Even though I'm a Christian, I know that what I'm about to say is very pagan. Like the first night was just like any other. I set up my tent away from the trail, cooked some food, and read a book by the fire. It couldn't have been better weather. Even though it wasn't snowing yet, it was still pretty cold outside. So I could still handle the weather with my jacket. I don't think I met more than a couple of people on my little adventure. Just a simple question, "Where are you going?" And that's all there was. It was a pretty well-known area, but not many people went hiking in the fall, which is why I chose to go hiking then. On the second day of my hike south toward Denmark, I went through a forest. I met another traveler. He was also on his own, but his bag was much lighter than mine. I said hello, and he replied hello. He was about 5 feet 6 inches tall and had long, blonde hair. His eyes were the brightest green you could imagine. I swear they were so green they almost looked like they were on fire. He was wearing some green pants and some strange brown boots with laces. His upper torso was just a brownish light shirt with long sleeves. When I asked him where he was going, he said he was going north. Since I'm from Denmark, I told them where I was going back to the south. We probably only talked for a few minutes about the trail's basics, and then that was it. I gave him a handshake and said goodbye. We both wished each other safe travels. But when he nodded his head, he ruffled his hair with his hand. And then I caught a glimpse of it out of the corner of my eye. As I walked by him, I noticed that one of his ears was shaped like an elf's. This story is true in every way. On Halloween last year, this happened. We went trick-or-treating with a few friends. It was probably around 9:30 at the time, and most of the houses had already turned off their lights. We didn't want to go home, though, because we wanted to stay out and do things. I thought it would be a great idea to look around the graveyard until midnight. Initially, even though none of my friends were for it, I was able to talk him into it. When you're 12 or 13, you don't want to be called a chicken. So they did what they were asked. We had stopped trick-or-treating about a mile from the town cemetery. We were 4 people, so we were pretty sure we could cut through the field to get to the cemetery faster. That means it was dark and only 2 of us had flashlights. The brush should not have been that high. We almost felt like we were in Jurassic Park or somewhere like that. But luckily, we could see the lights at the cemetery's entrance and a big cross at the main entrance. So we just kept going in that way. As we walked through the brush, we heard howling in the distance, but it didn't sound right. I don't know why it didn't sound like a dog, but it didn't. We paused because we had only heard it once. We looked at each other, and then we went to the cemetery. I swear as we were walking, it just seemed to go on and on, like it would never end and we would never get to where we were going. I don't think it was this far away when it was daytime. I didn't care, and we kept going. We did get where we were going in the end. As we walked up to the gate, I'm sure I saw something move far away behind some of the gravestones. We hid behind a dumpster in the parking lot while we waited for my friends to catch up. We all kind of peered around the corner of the trash can, and that's when we saw it. We all saw it, I swear to you. Behind this gravestone, there was a big dog walking back and forth. I thought it was a big stray dog at first, but then I noticed how it was standing. Their eyes. It has bright red eyes. I swore that the eyes were burning. When it opened its mouth, it was about 4 to 4.5 feet tall. I swore it looked like fire and that it breathed fire. It was moving very quickly back and forth. This animal seemed to be guarding or looking for something. What I saw, what we saw, etc. It had to be a hellhound, and it scared the crap out of us. We put it in reverse and rode it back into the field. Then we went straight home. We didn't say anything to anyone about it. Later, we all talked about it, but we all decided that it's best not to talk about it. We would have been laughed at. Anyway, I went to Scotland to see some of my family members last winter. From the East Coast, it was an 11-hour flight, but it was well worth it. It's been years since I last saw my grandparents. They basically live in a small town in the northeast of their country. There are still dirt roads everywhere. People still walk to and from the city with their mules. For some reason, that area is still very old-fashioned. I guess that's how they like it up there. There are only 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom in my grandparents' house, and the bathroom is outside. It has nothing to do with the house. They have a horse, 3 goats, some chickens, and a well in their backyard. The first 2 nights were just like any other. Nothing that doesn't belong. Just a bunch of homemade jokes about food, and a few board games. And every once in a while, we talk about my school and the things I did back home in the US. It was all good. Until the 3rd day. When I saw the things in the kitchen on the 3rd night. When I woke up in the middle of the night because I was thirsty, I thought I was just seeing things out of the corner of my eye. I brushed it off, got my water, and went back to sleep. But when it happened again the next night, I knew I wasn't seeing things. As I thought, I walked a little bit more quietly. I heard something again coming from the kitchen. I saw these 2 little people when I went into the kitchen. I don't know what they were called back then, but I know they cleaned. It was very strange. One of them had a small broom made of straw. The other one was wiping something in a corner of the kitchen. The house where my grandparents lived was being cleaned. I rubbed my eyes and couldn't believe what I was seeing. What in the heck are these? I must have watched them for about 10 minutes before I slowly crept back to my room. I didn't want to wake anyone up, and I didn't think they were acting strangely. Well, in a way, they were. I don't know what the hell they were, but I didn't tell my grandparents about it until the next morning. I didn't think they'd believe what I said, but they did. My grandparents told me that they are called brownies and that they actually help with chores around the house. They like to work at night, and they don't like to be watched or even seen in return. They give presents. As payment, my grandparents put bowls of oatmeal and honey in the corners of the rooms. People say that it has been done this way for hundreds of years. I know for sure that we don't have brownies in the US. No one helps me keep my room clean. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the mythological cryptid encounter stories tonight. Shout out to Goosebumps Now and Josh Reviews. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time.